I'm talking to Maria Albertsen, who's the founder of Counsellors Together UK, which is the largest counsellors campaigning group in the UK. And you were created to challenge the culture of unpaid work in our professions, but the group has really evolved to include a lot more than that. Do you want to say more?
It has, yeah. So the group started in July 2017, and it started after I met up with a friend in Newcastle for a cuppa, and she's a qualified therapist as well. And I'd met up with her because she was really struggling financially, and she had found that she was having to use a food bank to feed her young family. And we were talking about kind of the struggles of being a counsellor, like the financial struggles that come with that. And I had went away quite incensed by this, and I went on to the Counsellors Connect Facebook group, and I think it was a Friday evening, and I had a bit of a rant like you do, and I didn't expect many people to kind of comment on that, and I just said how that's what had happened that day and how upset I was by that. And then before I knew it, there was almost 300 comments from different counsellors. Wow. Saying how they were struggling financially and finding it difficult to find work. The theme, which is talked about quite a lot, is how the membership bodies and accreditation play into that, and how counsellors become stuck in this kind of cycle of having to work voluntary for several years before they acknowledged for jobs and things. And I hadn't realised, although I'd been a counsellor since I qualified in 2005, I hadn't realised how, it was such a big problem it was. And then we got our hands on the BACP Members Employment Survey, which was done in 2014. And I was a member of BACP, but I can't remember seeing that survey. So it was 2017 when I found that. And that was quite shocking. And we learned from that it was, I think it was 52% of counsellors earned less than £10,000 a year. And there was only 9% of counsellors earned more than £30,000 a year. And some of the figures in that were really shocking. And so this conversation continued in the group, and I just said, shall we make a smaller group just to talk about this more? And that's all I thought it would be. And then today we're at almost 8,000 members, and it's really blew up. So, yeah.
Sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say, so we have the Facebook group where we kind of support a lot of our members in various different ways, really. So we have the group where people can drop in and access support, but then we have monthly co-working meetings where people can come on Zoom, and we'll have more of a one-to-one chat with people there. And then we have probably in any month, we have about 60,000 interactions with members in some way or another. So that might be email, messages via Facebook, either the group or the page on Twitter, LinkedIn. And yeah, so we have anywhere between 40 to 60,000 interactions per month.
That's extraordinary.
Quite extraordinary, really. So considering we're a very focused group, I would expect that in a group where it was, a more generic group and they were dealing with lots of things, but considering we're very focused, that's quite a lot of interaction. So
it is. Yeah. And I think CT UK is quite unique. You're not a union, you're not a support group. I mean, how would you describe what makes CT UK different?
Yeah, we keep being asked to be those things. We keep being asked to kind of involved in a union or a membership body, but we're not going to. And I would say that we are a campaign/pressure group. And it's important to me that we stay that way, because I think we have a lot more freedom. And I think that's one of the things that makes us quite successful, is we can react to things quite quickly. We are led by our members. Although I founded C2K, I've never really felt like I'm in charge of the group. It's more got more of a kind of cooperative feel to it. Most decisions that we make, we'll ask group members for their approval before we kind of go ahead with them. When we plan our campaign work for the year ahead, we always show that to the group and we listen to people's kind of opinions, and if they want any changes making, we'll make them. So I think what that's enabled us to do, which is quite different to a lot of groups, is that we we're quite able to hold a lot of people. We're able to kind of manage the diversity in the group and those differences of opinion. And I think that's because people feel like it's their group, like it belongs to them and they are listened to and heard. Yeah.
That they don't have to fight for space. They don't have to fight to be heard.
No.
It's very grassroots.
Yeah, and I think that's really important to people, because I think one of the things that people have been saying over the last couple of years is that they don't feel listened to by the membership bodies, and this has come from Scoped as well. That's been a massive thing, and people not feeling listened. So I think it's been really important that people, they've been actively seeking out that space where they will kind of be heard.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think the group C2UK is really accessible to a lot of people. Yeah, it's easy to find us, it's easy to join, and we have quite a solid set of rules and boundaries within that. We're quite open, really.
So your style of leadership feels quite different. You're not a figurehead per se. How would you describe your style of leadership?
Someone said to me the other day that I lead from the back, and at first I was like thinking, is that an insult, because I'd never heard it before? But then someone said someone famous done that. It was like Martin Luther King or something. So I was like, I'll take that. So, how I would describe it, because I don't really feel like a leader, to be honest. Like, I know that I am in a way, because I do lead the campaign works, and I do kind of go out there and I speak to people on behalf of the group. A lot of people in the group do look to me for kind of guidance and things. But I don't know, I guess I just see myself as one of the group as well. Like, I am part of the group. Like, I don't feel bigger than the group, if that makes sense.
Yes,
like
it feels as if you give people room to get on with things. So, you know, the I don't know what to call them, co-conspirators, your staff. What's the right way to describe the people that you work with?
So we just say we're all admin, really.
Right, admin.
Yeah.
That feels very flat in the hierarchy, you know, it doesn't feel as if you're ruling from above. But neither are you just saying, oh, tiddly-pom, get on with it. You know, that you're some sort of guiding principle.
So we're very... so the admin team, so there's myself, Tara and Glenna, and we all have our kind of specific roles in what we do, but I try to make sure that we all kind of take some responsibility for something that we're doing. So for example, Tara is project manager for a couple of our campaigns, and then Glenna will kind of oversee the social media, and I guess I just trust that they know what they're doing and they'll do it. You know, I don't think that I have to kind of, you know, keep check on what's happening or what they're doing all of the time. So it's...
Yeah, they very much have their own flavour.
But that's what makes us who we are. And I think when our members see that, like, they then feel more able to just bring what they want to bring as well. So, so we have, we try to respond to members' needs as much as we can. That's another thing. In thinking, you know, because I don't know all the answers to what members want or what we need to do. So, for example, we asked members what they wanted to do in terms of promotion for the counselling services, and they're the ones who came up with the PSA campaign that we're doing. So that's Professional Standards Authority, because we have members that go across all the different membership bodies. So C2UK can't just promote BACP or NCS or the ACC. We have to promote them all. And I think where our group is really different is that there's a lot of respect there for each other, regardless of which organisation we belong to. And then as an admin team, we've been able to kind of identify ways in which we can promote everyone rather than just one group.
That's a huge difference. You don't have to advertise.
No, and the campaign has been something that every member can get behind. You know,
it promotes us all.
So I think that's what makes us successful as well. Mm. Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about National Counsellors Day?
I do. I love National Counsellors Day. So National Counsellors Day started in 2019. So it's only been going 2 years. It's the third conference in June. So June the 19th, Saturday, June the 19th is our third conference. And what I realised quite quickly when I set up CT UK was that the public are not really aware of what we do. There was two problems. Firstly, the public weren't really aware of what counsellors do generally. And then on the other hand, there wasn't really that space that we've just been talking about where everybody can come together from all these different places and kind of meet. So National Counsellors Day to me has got two clear aims. And the first one is to just raise awareness of the counselling profession and what we do. So we put a lot of work into promoting counselling, what it is. We do kind of myth busting things, and we do interviews with our counsellors, and we post them on social media leading up to National Counsellors Day. And this is all for the public, because to me, if we're going to make any big changes, then we need the public on our side. Well, and that starts with kind of educating them about what we do. And the other one was to create this space to bring counsellors together, but not in the sense of the spaces that already exist. Part of the problem and why there is a lack of change in our profession is because people avoid having difficult conversations about things that really matter. So we wanted to create a space where these conversations could happen. So the first conference 2 years ago was about the future of therapy, and it was a lot to do we talked about like IAPT and social justice and responsibility. Last year, the whole theme was about social justice. And then this year, it's about intersectionality and diversity and inclusion. And within that, we're talking about like finance, class, racism, sexism, all those things, those difficult conversations that are not being had in that space. But it's worked quite well, I think, because we have kind of set up in the way that we have. Those spaces have felt quite safe as well. Although saying that, last year's conference, there was a lot of racism that came out in the chat room as well during one of the presentations. But instead of kind of running away from that, we just thought, right, how can we address that? Like, we've all got to work together. And although there was some racism that came out from counsellors in the Zoom chat, we just thought, right, well, what can we do? So we decided, like, next year we really need to focus on diversity and inclusion, and we need to look at racism more. And also, it's a not-for-profit thing. So the money that we do make from National Counsellors Day goes back to counsellors, and not just to CT UK either. It goes back to counsellors from anywhere. They don't have to be a member of CT UK. And what we plan to do is put a programme together to look at, what we're going to do is work with other counsellors to identify what's missing in training in terms of diversity and inclusion, and work on putting a programme together that can fill those gaps. So that's how the money will be put back into it.
This leads on quite nicely to your model of person-centred activism. Are you able to screen share?
Yes.
That?
There it is. Can you see it?
Yep, there it is.
There it is.
So when we're talking about these difficult conversations, and I imagine every counsellor is now all too uncomfortable with these explosive debates. They're not even debates, these explosive encounters. What you're developing here, this model of person-centred activism, offers one way through that. And I know it's not entirely evolved, it's not a fixed thing, but you want to talk us through your values and principles, the way that you want conversations to go.
Yeah, so we often get asked at CT UK, people will say to us, you know, you're quite a new organisation, how have you been so successful? Like, how do you campaign? How do you plan it? And we have sat down as an admin team and thought about this, and actually it just comes back to being person-centred. We're all person-centred therapists in the admin team, and most of our group, or I would say most of our members. certainly, you know, a lot of the members who are paid for members as well, who've had some input into this are. So to us, there's kind of like three main parts to our campaign. The first part, which we put in the middle about the relationship with self and others, is there because you're always campaigning in relation to something. Do you know what I mean? Or someone, or an organisation, or a group. And even if you don't agree with what they're doing, or, you know, your values or principles don't align with theirs, you still have to form some kind of relationship with them if you're going to kind of expect some kind of change to happen. And so it's a bit like, so we called it the person-centred model of activism, and it's not person-centred counselling. What we do is we draw on person-centred theory and bring that into our activism work. So what we then look at is these 7 things, if you like, these 7 points. So the first thing we look at, so sorry, after that bit, there's 2 parts. We think what the first thing before we can even begin to campaign is to really look at ourselves, because what I found, certainly for myself and for CTUK, is that we can't really change anything unless we've kind of done a degree of self-exploration before in that. And the reason I think that is because activism is like bloody hard work. It's really draining, it's exhausting, it's hard to keep going, and it's so easy to become lost in all of the noise that's happening out there. And so the first part of this, where we look at points 1, 2 and 3, are really about kind of exploring why we're even doing what we're doing, like why we're so bothered about it, why we want to change. And when we say for self or others, it's because there's always like a degree of, you know, selfishness to it. You know, you're campaigning about something because it's important to you, or it affects your life or those close to you and who you care for. But there's also other people's involved in that as well. We're campaigning as a group. And I just think, like, if you can get, you know, that kind of settled, or that kind of clear in your own mind, you're campaigning with more clarity, and it just gives you a stronger sense of kind of who you are and why you're doing what you're doing, and you feel more grounded within that. So if you do then get lost, which most people do when they're campaigning, because there's so much going on, you can come back to that and just be reminded of doing it. And that all helps us to build up that relationship with the people who we're campaigning either with or for or against, you know, because there will be people in each camp. There'll be people campaigning with you. You'll be campaigning against something, and you'll be campaigning for something as well. And you need to build up relationships across all of those 3 things. Does that make sense?
It makes really good sense. And I remember being taught about the way that things get done is you have terrorists and you have negotiators. And it sounds as if you are on the side of negotiation. And, you know, there's room for, we need the people to put pressure on too, but you're coming from a place of negotiation, firm negotiation, you know, not waffling, but you've got a foundation in why you're doing what you're doing.
And I think as well, like, it actually, like, some people might look at this model and think, oh, them first 3 things are quite, I don't know, airy-fairy or something in terms of campaigning and being strategic. But actually, if you do have a really strong sense of yourself, I think that actually makes you stronger in your campaign work. You know, you can keep your feet on the floor whilst everyone else is getting lost with things. And then, so from that, I think it helps kind of build up respect for what you're doing as well, because people can look at you and your campaigns and they can see that you're actually bothered about the bigger picture. Like, it's not just about you know, you're bothered about how how things are affecting other people. So for example, in our PSA campaign, when we worked through this, we looked at, you know, if you look at the values and principles, and so we have members in CTUK from all the different membership bodies, and it was really important that we kind of showed care to everyone and we respected everyone regardless of what membership body they belong to. Also, under the others and shared, it's a bit more than that. It's like you're accepting their experiences, their culture and their choices you know, and I think it enables people to feel really included in your work as well, and be more likely to kind of come along and support you. So.
And looking at these values and principles, they're familiar. They're in a number of our ethical frameworks, and they're very common to person-centred work. And you know, they go right back, I think, to some of our earliest written work, people like Janet Tolan and Totten. And
so that's where we kind of drew inspiration from this from. So I'm a person-centred counsellor. Our admin team are a lot of the people who had input into this are, and we think kind of, well, person-centred, it's about like being human as well, isn't it? So it's about embracing those kind of human qualities, and so there will be reflected of some of the kind of ethical frameworks or the codes of kind of practice that people work towards as well. But there are also, you know, you just mentioned Janet Tolan. I was reading one of her books recently, and a lot of this stuff, you know, about client autonomy is included in their very, you know, the introductory chapters of their work. So for us, it's been about drawing on that theory. And so it's a bit like taking the stuff that, you know, works in therapy, that kind of creates and kind of nourishes that relationship, and taking that and using that to underpin how you campaign, so that it kind of, you know, it holds. And because what we're essentially doing is creating a frame, aren't we? So this is our frame, and that's quite holding for people.
Yes, yeah. It holds the campaigners and it holds the campaign.
Yeah.
And in some sense, it holds the people that you are, people or the situations that you're trying to alter.
Yeah.
Also.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, you know, you used, what words did you use earlier about the negotiators and terrorists? And to me, it's a lot about being diplomatic as well. So, you know, about, you know, I think you can often, when you look at the other persons or the, you know, the even if it's so different to yours, if you're able to kind of, you know, get past your own kind of stuff to look at that, you can actually like learn stuff about yourself and your own campaign and reflection to that as well. So it's about like leaving all that open as well. So if you're not in agreement with someone else, you can still learn from them, and it can still influence your campaign and how you move forward. No?
Absolutely. And I like the word diplomatic because there's a great degree of skill in diplomacy. It is strategic. It's not just being nice. And I think sometimes people who aren't person-centred therapists think person-centred work is wishy-washy and, oh, wouldn't it be nice if everything was nice? But actually it's quite strategic.
It is.
We're doing what we do because it works.
Yeah, and it gives you a very robust frame within, and it's not wishy-washy at all. But I totally get that people say that, and I think that's why I said, you know, a lot of people will look at this and think, oh, what's that? It's a bit airy. I think I used the words airy-fairy. It's not. You know, what can be more grounding than having a really good sense of who you are and why you're doing what you're doing? You know, like for me, that's like putting the foundations in place so that you can move through the rest of this cycle, this model, you know, because without that, it's much more easy for that frame to break and to fall apart, and then you're left with nothing, really.
Very much so. And I mean, we are seeing polarization just take over, not just the therapy world, but all around us, people are polarizing. It's either or, all the time.
Yeah.
This proposes a different way of doing things.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's what makes us different as well, is we've managed to avoid kind of getting sucked into that way of working. And again, coming back to this model, that's because we do stick to that model. So we are very clear and grounded and focused on what we are doing. And I think, you know, what you're talking about there, that polarization, it scares a lot of people, and a lot of people are scared to speak up and to actually get involved in campaign work and activism anymore, which is such a shame, really, isn't it?
It is. Maria, we've got to gently draw to a close. There's so much more that I want to say. There's so much more that needs to be said, but this has been a great introduction to this model. Is there anything that we haven't spoken about that we should?
No, I'll just quickly say about this model. So the next kind of points 4 to 7 are quite, this is where we get really strategic. And we at CTUK, we use Google Docs, and we'll have like a column for each process to work through. So after we've done that initial work on ourselves and the group, we'll then look at what our aims are, our objectives, how we meet it. And it's a very kind of solid plan of action that we work through. And the only thing I want to say about it is, if anybody is interested in using this model, then this is just a very quick screenshot of, the kind of very basics of it. I have written a chapter on each of the 7 points, and I will be putting all that on the website so people can download it and use it if they want to. If it's not their cup of tea, then that's fine. But if people kind of, see this and it feels right to them, then I'd be quite happy for other people to use it as well.
Great. So we can find you on Twitter and Facebook.
Yeah, so
LinkedIn.
Twitter's just Maria Albertsen, and then the main CTUK website is ukcounsellors.co.uk, and you'll be able to get all the contact details for myself or any of the other admin from there as well. So,
that's fantastic. Yeah. Thanks so much, Maria.
Thank you for having me. It's been good to share this. So,
thank you very much indeed.